and attributes. So first of all, what is an entity and what is an attribute? The entity is the live which having some identification. Okay, so the item which can be identified, like as we are studying the OOPS concept as an object. So object is a runtime entity which is used to identify something. Okay, like that. Entity is also an thing which can be identifies the remaining things, right? That is called as an entity. In the ER data model, the everything will be identified only with an entity. Generally, the entity will be taken as a table names, right? The table names are called as an entity. If I want to go with this any ER model, so we need to have the two things. One is called as an entity, another one is called as attributes. So entity can be a real world object. So what you are studied in the previous sessions, right? Previous class of the second year OOPS concept, we have studied about object is a runtime entity. Here it is a real time object, either animate or inanimate, that can be easily identifiable, right? It need to identify something. Suppose if you take it an example as an employee database, so employee, the name of the table, right? Employee, department, production and departments will be there, employees will be there, management will be there, these are all come, accounts department will be there. Okay, so these all are come under what entities. Suppose if you take it as this student college, so students will be there, faculty will be there, accounts department will be there, classes will be there, groups will be there. So these all come under what, sir? Entities. All the entities have some attributes. So generally entities contains what? Attributes. Attributes nothing but the things which can be identified through with the help of an entity, that is called as an attribute. So entity that can be shown in the form of rectangle. An entity is a set of collection of similar types of entities. So entity set is a collection of entities, right? A group of entities is called as what? Collection of similar entity types is called as what? Entity set. An entity set may contain entities with attributes sharing similar values. For example, a student set may contain all the students of school. Likewise, a teacher set may contain all the teachers of a school from all faculties. So entity to be disjoint, right? So entity set nothing but the combination of entities is known as what? Entity set. Combining, if you take it as a student, all the students come under what? One entity set, right? So then on example we take, what is that? Attributes are for the an entity has attributes which can be considered as a properties describing it. There you are said about state and behavior. The state and behavior is known as what? Identification of object. Here also the entity contains what? Attributes. The attributes get the identification with the help of entities only. Suppose if you take it as a professor as an entity, professor as an entity, then automatically it contains some set of attributes. Those are called as the professor name, professor address, professor salary, right? Faculty, if you take, faculty will be there. They are the things, right? So in this one we are having the two types of entities are there. One is called as a strong entity, another one is called as weak entity. So generally the entity will be shown in the form of rectangle. The entity will be shown in the form of rectangle. Okay, the entity will be shown in the form of rectangle. So a rectangle is a representation of an entity. Entity are the two types. One is called as strong entity, another one is called as weak entity. A strong entity will get the meaning directly, but weak entity will get the meaning by depending on another entity, right? Suppose you take it as a bank and a loan. So loan, if the bank is there, then only you will get the loan, right? The loan will get the identification with the help of bank. So now bank is called as a strong entity and loan is called as a weak entity, because this get the identification with the help of another entity. Those type of things are called as weak entity and strong entity. So strong entity will be shown only in the rectangle format, but weak entity will be shown in double rectangle. Weak entity shown in double rectangle. The strong entity has a primary key. Weak entities are dependent on strong entity. Its existence is not dependent on any other entity. Right? Strong entity has a primary key. Weak entities are dependent on strong entity. Okay. The weak entity is always depending on strong entities. The example I said, what is that? Bank and loan. Suppose if you take bank is there, then only the loans will be possible. It may be home loan, it may be personal loan, it may be house loan, or it may be anything, right? Gold loan or anything. So the loan will get the identification only when the bank will be there. Okay, so that type of things are called as strong loan. In this one, the professor in the previous example wanted to, so professor name, professor ID, professor salary, these are things are called as what? Attributes. In this one, professor ID is the primary key. So in this one, the professor ID having the identification. When the weak entity in the DBMS do not have a primary key and are dependent on the parent entity. It mainly depends on other entities, right? So it won't have any primary key. It is depending on some other thing. Those type of things are called as weak entity, right? So professor dependents, name, date of birth, and relation. So dependent always dependent. I already said one example. What is that? Here we take as professor related dependent, right? So professor ID, professor name, city, salary. These are in this one ID is the date of what is that called as primary key. And dependent we are having the name, date of birth, and relation. So this dependent will get the meaning only with the help of professor. So then that is called as what? Weak entity. And strong entity will be shown in rectangle and weak entity shown in double rectangle. And the next topic that we are discuss about is attributes. What is an attribute? Attribute is a property of the table, right? Or table, if any table which contains the properties, those properties are called as attributes. Entities are represented by means of their properties is called attributes. All attributes have values. For example, a student entity may have name, class, and age as attributes. Employee, if you take it as employee ID, employee name, employee address, job, salary, these all are come under what? Attributes. Suppose if you take it as a project ID, project name, duration, number of employees working, these are called under what? Attributes, right? So these are the different type of the attributes are there, right? Types of attributes. Simple attribute, the attribute which is normally defined, then that is called as what? Simple attribute. Attribute is atomic value which cannot be divided further, right? Which cannot be divided further. Atomic, only one value, single value, then that is called as what? Simple attribute. Composite attribute are made more than one simple attribute. For example, a student's complete name may have first name and last name. Address, maybe you can take it as street, house number, street, colony. These are come under what? Composite attributes. So derived attribute, the attributes which can be derived from another one. The attribute which can be derived from another one, like I suppose age. Age will be calculated only with the help of date of birth is another attribute, right? Suppose you take it as a total. The total will be calculated with the help of all the subjects. Average also calculated with the help of total. Those type of things are called as what? Derived attribute, right? So another one, single valued attribute and multi-valued attribute. A single valued attribute contains single value. For example, social security number. So SSN number, right? So social security number, so which cannot be dividable, right? Multi-valued attribute contain more than one value. For example, a person can have more than one phone number, then that is called as what? Multi-value attribute, right? So these are the different types of attributes that we can see in a ER model. And then next one is what? Entity set and keys. So already we studied entity set. Entity set nothing but what? Entity set nothing but what? Combination of similar entities, right? A key is an attribute or collection of attributes that uniquely identifies an entity among entities set. So for example, roll number of a student makes him or identified by among student. In this one we are having these are the keys. Super key, a set of attributes that collectively identifies an entity in an entity set. In one entity set, if any entity is identifies, then those are called as what? Super key. A minimal super key is called as a candidate key. An entity set may have more than one candidate key. Individual identifications, it's known as what? Super key. Combination of keys are minimal super keys are called as what? Candidate key. And primary key, a primary key is one of the candidate keys chosen by the database design uniquely identifies the entity set. In the last classes we discussed unique plus not null, that is called as what? Primary key. So super key, candidate key and primary key. Super key, a set of attributes more than one or more that collectively identifies an entity in an entity set. In entity set, one attribute has been like one or more combination of more identifies the entity, then that is called as what? Super key. The minimal super keys are known as what? Candidate key, right? An entity set may have more than one candidate key, okay, and a primary key which is having the uniquely identification. That is the thing about super key, candidate key and a primary key. Then relationships. So degrees of relationship, that is called as what? Degrees of relationship are, so most important, unary, binary, ternary. Okay, so an association among entities is called as what? A relationship. Okay, an association among entities, between the entities, if I want to combine, if I want to make some relationship, right, I want to combine the two entities, so then we want to maintain some association between the two entities, then that is called as what? Relationship. For example, an employee works at department, a student enrolls in a course, right, a person or employee works under a department, works at enrolls are called relationships, right? A relationship set, a set of relationships of similar type is called a relationship set. So like entities, a relationship can be two, can have attributes. These attributes are called descriptive attributes. Sometimes a relationship set also contains some attributes. Those are called as what? Descriptive attributes. So what are the degrees of relationship? That what I said as a unary, binary and ternary. Unary, binary and ternary. So unary relation, binary means what? 2. Ternary means 3. Right? Binary means 2, ternary means 3 and NRI means degrees of relationship. Unary, binary and ternary. So unary means only one. A person may marry another person, only one will be there, only one relationship will be there, right? Binary means 2, normally student enrolls in a course, student to course, it's known as what? Binary. Ternary, doctor, patient and medical shop, the prescription is the relation, that is called as what? Ternary.